MLB Mock Draft time. We welcome on Ryan Miller, host of the Boys of Spring podcast, as well as one of the guys on our new State of the Division podcast, a podcast 6 days a week, 15 minutes, breakdown of each division. But Ryan, we're talking college baseball today. You wrote a great mock draft 2.0. You did the 1.0 version. Now we're talking 2.0. So I want to ask you about those changes and dive into some of the best players in college baseball, as well as in the high school ranks. So how you doing, my man?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just, going over some draft stuff daily. I'm an associate scout now for the Guardian, so I'm doing a lot of that stuff, trying to keep up on all the news. But yeah, this is going to be a fun class.
It's got to be awesome to kind of work with the Guardians because of what they've been able to do with their pitching. But before we get into it, just talk about your experience quickly with the Guardians, because associate scout, it's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm going to be working up on Cape Cod this summer for the Orleans Firebirds, and part of that is just watching the game. Every game on the schedule. So the Guardians came to me with an opportunity to kind of be another set of eyes for them. It's called being an associate scout. It's not a full-time position or anything. I'm just kind of giving them another look. I'll write some reports for them. And then before I head up to the Cape, I'm hanging out in New Jersey, where I'm from, just driving around and seeing some different guys for them.
He's being humble. He's a young guy who's getting his start in baseball and is already off to a great start and is already a big-time writer for us. And you're hanging out with the Guardians at 21, 22 years old. So Ryan, let's start at the bottom of the draft and work our way up. We're not going to go through every single pick, but I kind of want to unpack some of the big players in this draft. And that starts with Kumar Rocker going to the Colorado Rockies with the 38th pick. So this is a guy who's drafted within the top 10, actually 10th overall to the New York Mets, but ultimately didn't sign. He's a guy with Vanderbilt, big time right-handed pitcher, great fastball, great slider, and 2 average secondaries. Talk to me about Kumar Rocker, because he could be a guy who balls out in an independent league and maybe goes much higher, maybe goes near the top 10, or we could see him bouncing out of the first, second, even third round. Why do you have him going 38th to the Rockies?
So Kumar Rocker is a guy who we're going to be talking about as a baseball community for years to come. He looked like the consensus first overall pick a couple years back, kind of dropped from that, got picked 10 to the Mets, didn't sign due to some injury concerns. And 38 is kind of just a range that he could be in. I think he'll probably be towards the back end of the first round or in this comp area. And the reason why I mocked him to the Rockies is because they drafted him out of high school and they have 3 first round picks within this range. So they can kind of afford to take a little bit of a risk on him. And he's a very interesting prospect because now he's going to go to the independent league and see what he has there. The main thing is health. We know how dominant he can be on the mound, but if he looks healthy and he's dominant, then he could go in the middle of the first round. I don't know if he works his way into the top 10.
So you mocked this beautifully, because you're kind of guessing where each team, what matters for each team, where they kind of match up within the draft. But Ryan Miller, if you're the GM, like you're the GM, I'm giving you full draft reins. Do you feel good enough about Kumar Rocker to take him in the first round if that's your only pick?
That's a tough one just because we haven't seen him pitch in so long. Maybe if he's very good for this independent league team, possibly, but right now I'd probably rather go with one of the college pitchers towards the back end of the first round, if that's where I'm picking, that has gotten Tommy John surgery, because we know how successful Tommy John surgery has been. So I'd probably rather go with one of those guys who've been on the mound and did get hurt this year, but might be very good down the line.
So moving forward to the 35th pick, a guy who did get Tommy John surgery, but is one of the best pitchers in college baseball, in my opinion. And if he was healthy, I think he'd be the first pitcher taken in this draft. That's Peyton Palette out of Arkansas. But you have him going 35. There's obvious injury concerns. Do you agree with me that if healthy, Peyton Palette would be the best pitcher in this draft?
I think college-wise, he would be the first pitcher off the board if he was healthy and had a full season. Obviously, we don't know how he would have performed, but this guy has a high 90s fastball and a very high spin curveball that both are plus weapons for him. And just the dominance that he showed throughout his entire time in college has been unreal. And the reason why he's so far back in this mock is just because of the injury concerns, some unknowns there about how he's going to come back, but definitely a great pitcher. And with the Royals, who I mocked him to, going very college pitcher heavy in the past, he could be a steal for them.
If I'm a GM, he's the guy I'm targeting because we've said it ourselves, and we've said on the Just Baseball show. You guys have said it on Boys of Spring. We've said it on basically every podcast that we have on the Just Baseball network. The Tommy John surgery, it seems to be inevitable at this point, right? In my opinion, I got a young guy. I know he's good already, and he's going to come into my team with my medical staff. I'm a big fan of Peyton Palette. I would be grabbing him if I was the GM. But let's move into the first round because a lot of those are compensation picks. And let's start at the end. First, this guy is just interesting. He's been setting records, and he's just a fun dude because he's a two-way guy. But will he be a two-way guy moving forward? That's Zach Neato with the 30th overall pick to the San Francisco Giants. He's just so exciting. We don't have to touch on him a ton, but just kind of give me the Zach Neato experience so far because he's phenomenal.
His stats look like a video game. I mean, this guy could hit above 400 this year. He's very, very good with the bat. With that said, I think the only reason why he's really pitching is just due to Campbell being a smaller school, and he's, probably the best player on that team. So, yeah. And hey, if a team wants to go after him and maybe try out that two-way, I think he'll end up being a hitter full time, but it could definitely be an experiment for somebody.
Let's move to the 26th pick. Who's much more of a sure thing, in my opinion, in Connor Jerpy out of Oregon State. He's one of my favorite college pitchers right now. Outside of Peyton Palette, I'd say he's my favorite college pitcher in this draft. But you have him going a little bit later than I might have assumed. Why is he at the bottom of the first round to the White Sox?
So it's actually crazy. I really wanted to move him up, but I was just kind of looking at where all the rankings are on him, where all the different draft outlets have him, and many don't even have him in the first round, which is crazy to me.
Insane.
He is a very good pitcher, and I tweeted out a couple of weeks ago that he could be the fastest to the major leagues here. And we know what the White Sox have done with college pitching. Garrett Crochet is a perfect example. Obviously, he doesn't throw as hard as him, but this guy is almost a surefire starter at the next level. He's got great pitchability. He's very good at commanding all of his pitches, and his fastball can get up to the mid-90s as well.
He's a 6'3", 200-pound sophomore who has only produced great results. And I think he doesn't jump off the page because he's not 97. He's like 92 to 94 on a good day. He's not high velo, but he's got great command. His changeup, you even wrote in the article, works really well off his fastball, along with that mid-80s breakout slider. I think, to your point, he will be the most big league ready pitcher. I think he could be on the White Sox by the time we're talking in 2023. And with how hard it is to find a big league ready starter like that, I'm just surprised that he hasn't been shown in a lot of first rounds, and he's at the end of the first round in this mock.
Yeah, he's a guy who probably has the most helium in this draft for me. If we get to draft time, I wouldn't be surprised if he's sitting in maybe the 10 to 15 range.
Fantastic. So we have two back-to-back relievers right after. Well, they're not relievers. They could be starters. That's what I want to ask you about. The Yankees taking right-handed pitcher Blake Tidwell out of Tennessee, the 6'4", 200-pound right-hander, as well as the Red Sox at pick 24, taking Landon Sims out of Mississippi State, 6'2", 227 junior. Why do you like these guys so much? And do you think that Sims is a reliever? Do you think Tidwell is a reliever? Give me your kind of gauge on these two guys.
So I'll start with Sims. He was a reliever at Mississippi State before this year. He got turned into a starter before the year, and he looked really good in that role before he got hurt. He went down with Tommy John surgery, but I think either way could work for him. If a team wants to fast track him to the majors as a reliever, then that could work. We know how good his fastball and breaking ball are, but maybe he could be a starter if he keeps developing that changeup and he gets a third pitch. He might take a little bit longer in the minors, but I definitely wouldn't rule it out. He could be a starter down the line.
What
and
do you
with
think
Tidwell
as well?
Yeah, Tidwell, you can really say kind of the same thing because these two pitchers are very similar with their body types and their pitch repertoire. Tidwell has started for longer, but he's a guy who could turn into a reliever down the line just because of his stuff, obviously. But there's definitely a route for him as a starter.
Fantastic. And those two guys are going to the Yankees and the Red Sox back to back. So we talked about a couple of guys at the end. And as we go towards the middle, there's a lot of solid offerings, but I really want to fast track our way into the top 10. But before we get into the top 10, I want to talk about Chase DeLauter because He is an outfielder out of James Madison, who was projected, at least earlier in the season, to possibly be the number 1 overall pick. Coming out of James Madison, not a lot of looks on him, but he dominated every circuit that he's been in against high level type pitching. 6'5", 235-pound, left-handed sweet swing, has been compared to guys like Kyle Tucker. Wouldn't go that far, but has been compared to guys like Kyle Tucker. So, but you have him going 17th to the Phillies. Why the drop on Chase DeLauter?
So coming into Mock Draft 1.0, I mocked him number 4 to the Pirates. And the reason why I did that was I didn't know if it was really possible for him to go 1. But the reason why some people thought that he would go first overall is because of the Orioles' track record with taking underslot outfielders early. So he kind of seemed like the perfect fit for that. But then when the season started, he had a lot of struggles early. He really turned it on until he broke his foot. So he's out for a while. I'm not sure if he's going to come back this season. He hasn't played. But this could be one of the biggest steals of the draft if he turns out to be a very good player. He did great things for Orleans on the Cape Cod, in the Cape Cod League, and obviously his stats with James Madison have been unreal. So, like I said, if he turns out to be what people think he will be, and that could be a plus power guy, it could be a very big steal.
Are you worried about a foot injury with a 6'5", 235-pound outfielder?
Not really, but when you come into the draft, it's kind of all about risk, and I don't know how much teams will value his foot injury as risk, but we've seen guys in the pitching side drop because of injuries, and he might be one of the hitters that does as well.
So at number 12, right-handed pitcher Brock Porter out of St. Mary's Prep is going to the Tigers in this mock. He's an 18-year-old. He's committed to Clemson. He's a 6'3", 190-pound right-handed pitcher. I claimed that he is my favorite pitcher in the draft out of the high school ranks, right outside of Dylan Lesko, but Dylan Lesko has that arm injury now. So my thinking is Brock Porter might be the best prep arm in this class. Are you willing to go that far, or do you still like Lesko over Brock Porter? Because in your mock, you have Dylan Lesko going 8th overall to the Minnesota Twins. So either you're higher on Lesko, the entire community is higher on Lesko, or what's the case here?
So I've said this since the beginning. Porter is kind of like a Dylan Lesko light. He has similar stuff. He has a very good changeup. Lesko has a very good changeup. And with how good Lesko has been in the prep ranks, I don't know how much Tommy John surgery drops his stock, because before he had that injury, people thought he would be the best pitcher in the draft, and I still think he gets picked there, but I think that the gap between Porter and Lesko is definitely closing.
You think it's definitely closing? Like, would you be surprised if Brock Porter goes within the top 10? Because you have Gavin Cross, the outfielder, going 9 to the Royals. You have Jacob Berry going 10th to the Rockies. Are they, and then you have Jordan Beck going 11th to the Mets. Those are all hitters there. Do you find that those teams you think will go hitting heavy early, or is that just how the mock slotted out, that maybe you just think those players mesh well in those systems?
I think we're going to finally figure it out on draft day, because if Lesko gets picked up, let's say in that 6 to 9 range, then there's a massive drop off with quality of pitching. So you could see Porter get picked up right after that, a team just grabbing their guy.
And one of the biggest risers in this whole thing has been Jackson Holliday, the son of Matt Holliday, the shortstop out of Stillwater in Oklahoma. He is committed to Oklahoma State right now. He's a 5'11", 176-pound speedy shortstop. He's not the big burly man like his dad is, but he could be a more well-rounded type player with the glove, with the speed. Why are people so enamored with Jackson Holliday at the moment?
So with Holliday, I think that he is the best prep shortstop in this class, not named Tamar Johnson, but Tamar Johnson is probably going to end up being a second baseman at the next level. So Holliday wasn't even ranked in my first mock, and that's because the entire industry wasn't too high on him. But then scouts started laying eyes on him, guys started writing stories on him, and he's shot up draft boards. And Holliday's definitely a guy who could go first overall. If the Orioles take another underslot route in this draft, he's a guy who has a ton of upside and could even work out at that 1-1 spot, but could cost the Orioles a little bit less money.
Interesting, because the top 5 is legit. At number 5, you have Kevin Parada out of Georgia Tech, the catcher. And I just want to talk about him for a second, because not only is he a stud, but in every mock draft I see, Kevin Parada at 5 to the Nationals. Why is that such a popular pick?
Because the 1 through 4 talent is so good that I don't think any of the guys who are mocked 1 through 4 will drop out of that. And he's just that best player. Some may say he's in the second tier. I think he could work into that first tier of elite talent in this draft. He has a great bat. He's been very good this year. And just because it says catcher doesn't mean that he will at the next level. I think he eventually moves off of the position, maybe left field, maybe first base, but his bat's going to carry him throughout his career.
So you think the bat is that good that regardless he should be a top 5 pick? Because think about it, the catching position, if you're getting that value at catcher, that maybe is what bumps their value. But you're saying regardless of wherever he plays, the bat is top 5.
Yeah, correct. And with these two teams at 5 and 6, the Nationals and the Marlins, they kind of need a safe hitter, and he is the safest hitter in the college ranks in this draft.
And maybe the second safest hitter is Jace Young out of Texas Tech. He's going to the Marlins at number 6. But let's break into the top 4 because it's freaking loaded, like you said. Pirates are taking Elijah Green out of IMG Academy, the 6'3", 215-pound monster who's committed to Miami. He's the son of a former NFL tight end, and he's the biggest boomer bust prospect in the draft, in my opinion. He could be one of the next great power hitters, or he could strike out so much that he never even makes the majors. Where are you at on Elijah Green?
The Pirates can afford to take the risk here. They've mightily improved their farm system over these past couple of years. But with Green, as you said, he could be a superstar or he couldn't even crack the majors. And many people thought that he would go first overall a couple years ago coming into it because of the things that he was doing and how big he was. And now at IMG Academy, they play elite talent. He has been showing out. He's very good with the glove. Many people think that his power is maybe the best in the draft, and he's very quick. So this guy is tooled up. He has the tools to be a superstar at the next level. And if the Pirates don't go with him, if the draft shakes out like I projected, they could even go with Kevin Parada.
Now I'm talking to Ryan Miller, the man. Ryan Miller, do you think that Elijah Green is closer to being a superstar or closer to not making the majors?
Superstar for sure. He has all the tools able to be able to do that for sure.
What about Tamar Johnson at number 3 to the Rangers? Because I have heard that this is a generational type bat, but it's a generational type bat coming from a 5'8", probably second baseman who weighs about 194 pounds. He doesn't even have a commitment right now.
Actually, he does. So the other day he committed to Arizona State. I wasn't sure if he was going to commit or not, just because of his draft stock. But yeah, I mean, at 5'8", if you're that good of a hitter, I don't really care how tall you are. And I think a lot of teams and scouts are realizing that. And he's another guy who could go 1-1. There's no surefire 1-1 pick in this draft like previous drafts with Adley Rutschman and Spencer Torkelson. So a lot of these guys are definitely possibilities, but he could be the best pure hitter in this draft.
Why do people not like him as much? Because I've seen him drop to sometimes 7. I've seen him drop to 9 in some mock drafts. You're really high on him. I'm really high on him. Why are some other people not as high on him?
I think it's the height and the position concerns. Not really concerns. I think he'll be a fine defender at second base, but he's not going to play that premium position like shortstop or center field. So I think some teams maybe shy away from that a little bit, but I definitely think he's a great player and maybe the best player in this draft when it's all said and done.
I agree. I'm grabbing the bat. And someone who's going number 2, and maybe I'm alone on this island here, that's Drew Jones going to the Arizona Diamondbacks out of Wesleyan, Georgia, the son of Andrew Jones, committed to Vanderbilt. He's a 6'4", skinny, but not that skinny because he hits nukes, but he's 180 pounds. He's got a big combo speed. He's a great defender already. I'm a little bit out on him. I don't know how the bat's going to translate. I think he's going to be a great defender, but I think I am enamored with a couple different guys rather than Drew Jones. And I personally wouldn't take him at 2. He's at 2 for you. First, before you say, would you take him at 2? Why is Arizona such a great fit for him?
They've gone prep with a lot of different bats like Corbin Carroll, Alec Thomas. Those are two names that really pop out to me. But with Jones, it's interesting because he made a lot of swing changes recently. Before this year, his swing just didn't look good. It didn't look smooth. It didn't look like he was getting his hands to the ball as quick as he can. But now scouts are saying that he has elite bat ball skills, and his floor is an elite defender in center field with some great speed. So I think teams looking at that, if a team like the Diamondbacks really believe in the bat, he could go this early, but he's a guy for me who may drop down draft boards.
Do you love the bat?
I'm not as sold on the bat as some people. I think I'd go with Elijah Green over him at this point just because of how tooled up he is and probably Tamar as well. But just because of how highly everybody's talking about him, that's why I mocked him number 2.
I think you're totally spot on here. I would take Tamar Johnson. I would even consider Dylan Lesko. Like I'd consider some definitely other guys, maybe one of these college bats who I know is going to rake, like Jacob Berry, Gavin Cross. I know they're going to rake. Drew Jones, and maybe this take is going to come back to bite me when Drew Jones is the greatest center fielder in the history of baseball. And maybe it will. But in my opinion, I am a little bit hesitant to jump all aboard the Drew Jones train. With that said, I am totally willing to jump on your number 1 pick, Brooks Lee, the shortstop out of Cal Poly, going to the Baltimore Orioles, the 6'2", 205-pound kid who didn't want to go to the MLB draft, and instead he wanted to stay at his hometown with his dad, who's now the head coach at Cal Poly SLO. And me personally, I want to just talk about him for a second because I watched a full series of him. I've been following Brooks Lee. Brooks Lee was on one of my friends' travel ball teams at 12, 13 years old. I've heard the name Brooks Lee now for 8, 9 years, and I am a full believer. This guy could set a doubles record in baseball in the major leagues. He already did that at Cal Poly. He is a line drive, gap-to-gap player. I think he's going to stick at shortstop. I think this is a super, super high floor guy that could make all-star games in baseball. I'm so high on Brooks Lee, and you're really high on him too, because not a lot of mock drafts have him going 1. I mean, I think ours is the only mock draft right now that has Brooks Lee going number 1. So you must be on the same side as me as loving him, or do you just think it makes way more sense for Baltimore?
I love him, and I think he makes a ton of sense for Baltimore. And definitely a great player. Obviously, as you said, he's been raking his entire life. He may end up at third base.
Like
Yeah,
his
entire life. He could end up at third base, or he could stick at shortstop. I think he'll probably end up sticking at shortstop, but what's not to like? He's quick. He's 6'2". He's a switch hitter, and obviously that bat is crazy. And I think if he was at a big school, like a top 10 AP poll school, he would be the surefire first round pick.
Agreed.
Not a lot of people are saying him. And I get why he's playing at Cal Poly with his dad and where he's from and where he's comfortable with playing. He was the best hitter on Team USA. He raked on the Cape.
Yep.
He's raked every single year in college baseball. And if he was at, let's say, I don't know, Tennessee or LSU or Ole Miss or something, I think he would be on everybody's radar as the 1-1 pick. But yeah, as you said, he's just a great player. And I think down the line, my bold prediction is he will turn out to be the best player in this draft.
I'm totally with you. His biggest weakness, he plays at Cal Poly SLO. That's the weakness,
Exactly.
because there is no weakness. You say he might move over to third. Why do you say that? Because he does have a little bit of heavy feet, but I think he's got a great arm and he picks it so smoothly. The glove is so sound, but I know what you're saying. Could he stick at a major league shortstop? That's the question.
Right. And if he doesn't, that's fine because he's going to be a great third baseman. His range is all right, but if it doesn't really work out, as you said, he kind of has heavy feet. He could move over to third, and as you said, the strong arm that will carry him. I think he could win Gold Gloves down the line.
Think about this. I think his bat resembles a prime Alex Bregman as a switch hitter. Thoughts on that?
Like it definitely. And with the Orioles, I think it's the perfect pick because, like I said earlier, they've went underslot in the past couple of years very early on, and even if they get him for cheaper, he could be the best player in this draft still.
Agreed. So you guys have to go check out Ryan Miller's Mock Draft 2.0, now available on justbaseball.com. 3.0 is coming out soon. When do you think we can expect 3.0?
I'm thinking 3.0 is going to be a couple weeks before the actual draft, so probably early July, end of June.
And let the people know exactly the draft dates. Do you have it on them? Because I know it's towards the end of June, but I don't want to be incorrect.
I believe it is the 17th through the 19th. Let me check real quick.
On MLB Network. I love watching the MLB Draft. The MLB Draft needs more love because it's so much fun. I know you don't get to see the players for a couple of years, and that's what takes a lot of the allure out of it. But I'm there. I'm watching it because I want to see what the future of baseball looks like. And that's what Ryan Miller's writing up on justbaseball.com. Definitely check it out. Check out our friends at Loop, doing box breaks every single second on Loop. It's an awesome app. Ryan Miller and I, we've been in there breaking cards. I broke one last night. Got a Bowman Blaster. That is in our episode description as well. Join our baseball group chat on Chalkboard. Yes, on Chalkboard, not Discord, because Chalkboard is freaking better than Discord. And it is in our episode description as well. We're talking baseball, all for free. And that'll do it for this episode of Just Baseball Show. We will see you on Friday. And with that, thank you, everybody.